Alright, welcome back to the Adonai gameplay animation workshop. Today we are looking at the buff/debuff area that we worked on previously, as well as incorporating do once for it, and going over a little bit more over the homework, because I did assign something to you guys, like creating your own function for an area-based effect. So I'm gonna do that too. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and create a brand new blueprint actor class. And then this is just going to be, I'm going to call this the heal over time. So this is my heal over time blueprint. Let me go inside it and add a sphere collision. Oh, like a sphere. Right. And let me make this just a tad bit bigger. And do 8. And let's also do a sphere within it. That way we can just want to make sure like it's about the same size as it. And I'm gonna flatten it completely. That way it's just a circular disc. And I'm just gonna use the okay, sure. Let's just go with that, and that's going to be our heal over time effect. So something that we did exactly the same for buff area, we can just use the same exact code for it. So if I want, I can just copy this and go to the spear, go down to the event, click. So I'm gonna get event begin play, and then I'm gonna go to the event of begin overlap and end overlap. So now they go here. This goes here, this goes here. Okay. Now we're gonna look at the do once because I only want the area to be played once over time. Similar to what we did here. For so our player character only plays it once as soon as it gets into it, instead of it being called 5 different times and it acting on 5 different times. It only plays it once, and it will reset once the component and overlap comes into play. So that resets it. So then if the player enters again, then it can go over again. So do once just relies on an entry, and then if it entered once, it's only going to complete it once until the next reset node resets it. And sequence is basically just splitting the execute node from the previous branch. So let me just go ahead and copy those two as well. Not buff area. So basically I'm trying to do the homework that I have assigned you guys. And if you run into issues, we can also look at it later together. Okay, now we have the custom functions, jump and jump normalize. So we're gonna have to go ahead and create a brand new function called heal over time. Custom event, heal over time, and then another custom event. Call this heal over time stop. And a final custom event, because we're going to use the same buff debuff area code, which is repeat damage after time. So it's going to be a custom event called repeat heal after time. Repeat heal after time. Okay, great. And finally, we are going to need one more variable, which is going to be take damage over time. So we're going to take health over time. Okay, and basically we're gonna go and replicate the code that we had for debuff and buff. So before we get into that, we just need to make sure these are getting called properly. So let's go back to our heal over time and change this. So the custom player character reference is referencing heal over time. Yep. And then this is going to heal over time stop. Okay. Compile and save. This should be fine because I didn't compile that one. So for the most part, I can go ahead and clear this one. I kind of want this sphere to be green. That way uh, it looks like it's a healing area at least. Do they have green at all? That is a very bright green, but sure, it will work. I think this is for green screens. Okay. So let's start with firstly, we're gonna get this and set it. So as soon as this goes in, it's going to toggle it on, and when it's not, then it will toggle it off. So this is just to ensure that our code is going into the correct branch after it's being called. Okay. And then this is going to go into a branch, so I can just connect this here if I want. Instead of taking damage over time, it's just going to connect it there. Actually, it might run into issues later on, whatever it's trying to repeat it, so let's not do that. Let's just connect it with this. Okay. And if her condition is true, then I want it to heal over time, which is going to be the HUD reference. Get HUD reference. Player health. We're gonna get the player health. We're gonna add +5 or +8 to it. Let's do float +5. And then we're gonna do set health. Okay. There is that done. Oh, I also need to make sure I auto activate a sense of particles. So I guess I can just go ahead and duplicate this that is already created, but this time I'm just going to name it heal over time part. And I'm just going to change this to heal. I think it was heal 3D. I didn't really have to change the color for this because like it needs to stay green, although I will have to reset the direction for this because I want the heels to be going upwards, whereas um, the damage over time was going downwards. Okay. So I'm going to turn off auto activate, going to go to the event group, get this particle here, get an activate, plug that in before. Okay, do we need anything in? And then if we want repeat heat after time, repeat heal after time. Okay. And then I can just do here, deactivate, heal over time particle, and that should be it. So let me go ahead and take some damage first. Okay, now let's go and stride into the healing area. Oh. Infinite loop detected. Timeline float. What is this for? That is not something that should be happening. Because I don't think I touched this code at all, but okay. That is weird. Let's try that again. So sometimes your code breaks even though it shouldn't because you didn't really touch that code. And that is fine. Sometimes you just need to deal with it. So let's see. Oh, let me see. Did I toggle this part off? That part's off. Take time. Okay, let's break this link. Right now it's not really an infinite loop, right? So I should be able to just go back into it. Okay, it has something to do with our infinite looping property, which is heal after time, because I guess it's never setting it to false, or at least the computer doesn't think it is. Even though, oh, my bad. What it's doing is it's just doing it infinitely because we don't have a delay. Oh, it's always something so simple. Okay. The delay is what gives it so like the pulse of healing. How and often should it happen? If it was set to 0, basically it was doing it infinite times in a single second. Which is why our program would crash. And here we had a 1 second delay, so I'm gonna do the same 1 second delay. And it should start our healing process just fine. There goes the ball. And if I go on here, okay, every 1 second we're healing 5 points. Great. So let me go ahead and stop this, and let's look over what the jump blend space is about. So earlier on, when we were on our animation blueprint, we had the jump in a loop, right? Where the jump end was the final animation that we were playing. The jump start was the animation that was the launch, and then 4 other animations in between. And the jump falling part, it was just the apex. I am not sure if I can show that on screen. Let me pause this real quick. Okay, so I pulled up the video. This is from class overview number 13 when we did the jump. So as you guys can see, that it's going from a jump, from default movement to jump start to jump apex, jump, and then the jump apex was our falling part. So we have something similar now, except we are just using a different jump start because we have the animations created. So instead of the apex being the one at the very end, it's the jump end that goes at the very end. And the way that happens is the jump falling. This is just a simple falling animation. This is the one that was recently created for us. since he divided his animations into 6 parts. But what we have done now is the jump start. Instead of it being just a single animation, we have added it to a full on blend space. So what that allows us to do is we can have that blending portion completed, and between the blends itself, like you can have interpolation times if you want that to blend more, blend less, blend over time, things like that. So you can change those under the interpolation settings in the axis settings graph. Um, right. And if you can see, like the grid is divided into 4, but these 2 animations are not in the grid. So the way you do that is you just right click on any of the animations, turn off snap to grid, and then you can put any value on it. So if you want it to be 30, 25, 15, etc., and that those are not on the grid, then you can do that. The main purpose about doing this as a blend space is so that we can have our jump over time blend really well, compared to our code just playing the animations using the transition rules, where it's trying to finally see if the animation completes playing or not. We're just using the blend space now. And the way we've set up is this jump blend space float. This is just something I created in the event graph. And this is just coming from the movement, the jump part. I've just added that jump blend space variable from the left side here, and I'm using a timeline jump for it. And this is going from 0 to 100 in 1.25 seconds. Basically, the 0 to 100 is the same for this blend space to go from 0 all the way to 100, which is the falling animation. And once the falling animation starts, it's just going to continue playing it. I don't think this is, let me see the names. They're overlapping. Okay, yeah, this is falling. So if we go back to our animation graph, we go back to our jump end. The jump end has an extra play rate too, but that is only for the falling part. This is the last animation, the jump end that we had before. Something similar to it. And the jump falling, this animation particularly is just a looping one, which should be 0.5 falling. Yeah. It's just this animation of him constantly being in a loop. So let me go ahead and show you guys how that end turned out. Oh, and the transition routes for all these are very simple. So this is ABP's jumping, because that's the event graph that we have it created. ABP's jumping. It does jump start, and then once the height reaches at the apex, basically like it goes from 0 to 100 from the timeline, because once the timeline starts, it's always going to push that value, and that means it will just push the blend space all the way. Once the blend space ends, then ABP is not falling kicks in, which would be at the very bottom. So the blend space, this one is, it's going to keep the value at 100 as long as our character is flying, right? And I probably need to add a do once function here, because like right now, if you jump twice in the middle of the air, then like this timeline animation would start playing. So I just need to add a do once here, and then reset once the spacebar is released. So, you know, he would stop jumping. I guess I could just add it right now. Do once, and it will reset whenever the character is not pressing spacebar. Although this code still isn't perfect, so if a character leaves the spacebar while they're in the air and then press it again, then it will start doing it again. But we'll fix that some other time. It's a simple fix, because all we need to do is we need to make sure whenever ABP is falling, turns off is when we can use the jump again. For now, it's fine though. Let's go back to jump end. Jump end going back to the default movement. This is just that the animation is complete. So this is the time remaining ratio less than 0.05, so 5% of the animation or less is left. And then the jump falling is simply if the character is falling, so ABP is falling, if my mouse can go there. ABP is falling, and then it's going to go into ABP not falling. So goes to jump apex, and once it stops falling, then it goes to the jump end. So let's look at that right now. So if I press jump right now, as you can see, it's blending a lot better than it was previously, because it's just going from jump 0 to 100 on the jump blend space animation. And let me try to go to the buff area and jump all the way to the top. Oh, there you go. That's my buff. And then we can do the falling part, which is just directly. So that's what we worked on. And that's going to be all for this week's video. Good luck on your homework.